Tell you what, for certainly with most people now performing Taraweeh, and we're coming into that the home straight of Taraweeh. Ever think about the level of sacrifice, the level of preparation, and the mental state and spiritual state of the Hufaz, those that perform the Taraweeh prayer up front, the Imams. Okay, we're going to chat about that to Qari Ziad Patel. Really looking forward to that conversation. I think you're going to find it really enlightening. That comes up later. Let's talk now, however, to uh, Moulana Abbas Mkhize. And we're going to talk about an incident that happened, an event that happened a few years ago regarding Muslims of Zulu persuasion and the king of the Zulus, the late king now, of course, King Goodwill Zwelithini. So, Moulana Abbas, I appreciate your time. Salaam alaikum.
Assalamu warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Ashraf Garda, and greetings to all your listeners.
Thank you so much. So, Abbas, let's talk about. I mean, when was that big event? I mean, how many years ago was it? Because it got to my attention a few days ago to say what's happened since then. So, yeah, when did it happen?
It happened in 2016 in July.
Okay,
and
so 6 years ago. Yeah.
Yes, so it's I think 7 years ago now.
Okay, wow. So just to recap for those that don't know, what happened on that, what I would call a momentous day, in fact. Yeah.
Well, Ashraf, it was a very unique opportunity in South Africa for the Muslim community, who has desperately failed to take Islam to the mainstream and to naturalize Islam for peoples of all nationalities that makes this rainbow nation in our country. And that particular event was a very great test, which was passed by the Muslim community in terms of its organization and seeing it realized. But soon after the event took place.
Okay, we'll talk about the soon after just in a moment. So let's just confirm why was it significant in the first place? Because you've got the king of the Zulus, King Goodwill Zwelithini, and I would assume that the Zulus will be predominantly Christian, and here you have some Zulus like yourself who happen to be of the Muslim faith, and at that stage, why was that different, and therefore that event sought to do what at that time?
Yeah, well, the event at that time, the intention was quite clear that we wanted to invite the king to Islam, but which we have done successfully. But subsequent to that, it was to conscientize the Muslim community among the Zulu people as a community that exists and that has Zulus within itself. Something which we have achieved successfully in a manner that saw numerous rural communities being up and about, debating matters of Islam, including that of the royal family in those years. I remember with vivid memories of how many of the princes would make contact with us to begin to try and understand Islam better because of the impact that this particular event may have had on them. And that has continued, I mean, between 2016 and up to 2019 also, with our various interactions that we may have had under the auspices of Dr. Suleiman, MTR Suleiman of Gift of the Givers, who became a single organization that continued post that event to reach out in the name of the Muslim community to the chiefs and to the Zulu people in acts of humanitarian projects and in form of whatever assistance that he could provide. And that has continued to keep that light or that lamp that was ignited in 2016 with the king alive for quite a long time.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that, I mean, that's interesting. So at that time, you made the point at a public event. I mean, televised. It was a big, lots of dignitaries there. Um, the King Goodwill Zwelithini was formally invited to understand the Islamic faith on the one hand, but at the same time, uh, Muslims of Zulu persuasion were identified as Muslim and Zulu, part of the Zulu tradition and Zulu communities, meaning that Islam wasn't seen as an other religion, if I can understand it. I think there was an acceptance that Islam, that amongst the Zulus now, you will find Zulus of Christian faith, but you will also find Zulus of Islamic faith, and that was like publicly accepted by the king, which up to that time was unprecedented. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. In fact, the king has taken it a step further, where we saw significant meetings of the nation. Wherever they have taken place, it would not take place without us being called to be active participants in whatever the discussions would be at the time. So he did not just turn a blind eye and appreciate the fact that that event took place, but he, by virtue of his actions, his doings, his speeches, was now adopting a different attitude of reconciliation and cohesion with the Muslim community, which now he openly announces that he recognizes and they are part of him, and he was very consistent in every way you can think about. To date, he left us with that legacy of having the pulse of the Zulu nation unleashed at our disposal to engage it in whichever way we want, which can see Islam at the end of the day flourishing among the nation.
It's interesting when as you talk, I can't help but go back to what happened in modern day Ethiopia, but those years Abyssinia, where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had advised the minority Muslims who were being persecuted in Arabia at the time to seek the comfort and the support of the king of Abyssinia at the time. It was a Christian king, and he provided for them the safe custody to say, I recognize you. You have a space here to continue your faith for the rest of your life. So I'm trying to look at those connections, right? And that leads me on to this important question, right? So what has happened since then to the Muslim community of Zulus in that region, and what has been the relationship with Christian Zulus after that event in the last 6 years?
Ashraf, I appreciate the comparison with the incident of Abyssinia. But to then answer your question, the Zulu leadership post that event has always opened its arms and its heart to the Muslim community in any of giving any existing community space and respect it deserves to flourish as a community. They have done that very well on multiple fronts. The failure that I was alluding to in the beginning of my of the interview came from the side of us, the Muslim community. You should be aware, Ashraf, of the amount of resources and the amount of campaign that our own so-called Muslim organizations embarked on post that event to discredit it, to advise the Muslim community against what we sought to achieve. And the negative rumors and conspiracies that were created to try and destroy that vision that was achieved in 2016. So, in principle, the enemies of the progress of Islam in this particular context has not been the Zulu people or the Zulu leadership. It has been our Muslim organizations in particular, who are now standing in the way of Islamic development and building on that achievement and milestone that was achieved in 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, without having to point specific fingers on anybody, the
All right.
downfall has been on us.
Well, I mean that's a huge concern. I mean, in the light of what you just said, right? It's not every day, a tribe, a community, a whole culture of another faith opens up a space for you to be able to practice your faith. I mean, we've just had an example about India today. We're talking about how a minority Muslim community in India, but a large minority are being persecuted in that region, and we can look at many other countries in the world, right? So with that in mind, what do you think should then happen now? Because I mean that's the reason we're talking. It alerted my curiosity to say what's happened since that period. So what should be happening now?
Ashraf, I would choose to hope that one day Allah Ta'ala will inspire the Muslim community to always take advantages of the positive achievements which they have collectively or we have collectively achieved. But my honest view, I have seen that with the existence of all the so-called dominant organizations in this country, where Islam has never, ever, ever spread an inch, despite of so much of resources that the Muslim public is pumping into organizations, year in, year out, boasting of billions of rands and dollars that they are spending in humanitarian activities. Islam has not been moved an inch of acceptance by the mainstream indigenous communities of this country. It shows that we have a very serious problem with how our mainstream Muslim organizations are structured. There is issues emanating on aspects of transformation of these organizations, where to date they still represent an ethnic and specific nationalities within the Muslim Ummah. And they have become so complacent with being gatekeepers of Islam that they will go at all lengths to ensure that Islam does not trickle down to another nationality or color, not that they stay relevant in whatever it is that they stand for. And I believe that for as long as that status quo remains, Islam, just as it has never spread through them, it's not spreading through them, and I do not think it will spread in future through them until they take a conscious decision to rectify themselves and to put Islam forward and to put
well, you've raised some really important issues, and I would suggest that could be a broader discussion that Salam Media needs to facilitate, because I think it's that important, right? Perhaps just for now, I'll ask you this then, and leave it at that. You did speak about the transformation of these various Muslim bodies, and how it is perceived and how it's reflected, right? What would you do when you say transformation? What would you want to see happen with those organizations?
Ashraf, you have been friends with me for many years. We are an Ummah. We are people. We are the Rainbow Nation by virtue of the basis of our Islamic theology and Muslim. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam created and made us an Ummah, and Allah made us one Ummah. Wa inna hadihi ummatukum ummatan wahida. We don't have blacks, we don't have Indians, we don't have whites, we don't have all of these things in Islam. And until we do not recognize that we are one Ummah in this country that must prosper together, that must address challenges of Islam together, that must at all costs not sacrifice the spirit of oneness and togetherness in Islam, then the status quo will continue to flourish, and Islam will never be seen for what it really is because of these types of factors.
let's leave it at that, because I think it really needs further investigation. Absolutely. I mean, from my side, you're quite right. We talk about the rugby teams transforming, and we say, well, there's not enough black players, and we look at the cricket team and the football teams and all the others. And for some reason or the other, when it comes to broader South African Muslim organizations, a faith that must be absolutely on side on the oneness of one community, we don't put the same pressure on our own community to do just that on the same organization. So perhaps to reflect on that, and I don't know the Quranic ayat, but the essence of the translation: hold fast onto the rope of unity and do not separate. Moulana Abbas Mkhize, thanks for your time. Most enlightening, and let's see what comes out of this one. Thank you. Shukran.
Shukran.
Assalamu alaikum, baby. Moulana Abbas Mkhize, reflecting on that meeting with the Zulu King Zwelithini 6 years ago, and there's some pictures about it. Massive numbers of people. Yeah, when a predominantly Christian faith king opens up a space to recognize Zulus who are now Muslim as part of their natural culture, and you wonder what happened since then. And it seems like, to a degree, something, but not enough. You may tell me what you think. You can post comments on the various Salam Media social media pages right after this. Certainly looking forward to that. We will talk to Qari Ziad Patel. We'll also focus on the mosque, the Brixton Mosque, Masjid al-Islam. We'll talk about that. No, in fact, the Palm Street Mosque. We'll talk about that later on as well.
World-class financial services only